So I want to talk about AIOps. As some of you might think that AIOps is somewhat related to MLOps, but unfortunately it's so far apart. So I chose the title of more like infusing AI into the IT operations. So as Mary Jo was suggesting, I'm an emerging tech strategist and an AI consultant, write for Forbes. I also have a consulting company, the Field CTO. You could find my work at the fieldcto.com, or you can follow me on the social channels if you choose. So I want to start out with this, what the boardroom people are talking, right? In multiple recent surveys, if you Google them, you will see at least a dozen of them. There's a common thread across, right? Of course, most businesses are going digital. The ones that are born cloud native or digital native are already digital, but the rest of them, the enterprise ones, are also going digital. So when you are digital, you can afford to have your IT go down that's supporting your critical applications. If your IT goes down, essentially your business goes down, right? Whether it's ordering the food or hailing a ride or booking a room or buying something from Amazon. Nowadays, everything depends on a critical application or two and its entire interdependency. So when you're using an app, it's not just the app. Everything from the app all the way to the database or data store or data lake and back, everything should work in a harmony together, right? And boardrooms realize that. So as you can see in a survey, this is a survey that was done by ServiceMax, which is a GA company that I have no association with. But I thought this was pretty interesting, that about 20% of the boardroom members think the highest priority is achieving a zero unplanned downtime, because your IT is your business now, right? IT supports your business 100%. And of the 24%, the customer client satisfaction, that's also driven by IT. So essentially it's almost half of that is attributed to IT now, right? So they want to have zero unplanned time as their top priority. In top 3 priority, almost 90% of the boardrooms think that, right? These are not negotiable terms, because if it goes down, your business goes down. So there is another survey which was pretty interesting. This was done by ITAC of about 1,000 business executives, CXO level executives, right? This was done last year. And they asked a question of what does a cost of outage per hour for your business? About 86% of them, these are IT executives we are talking about, not just, business executives we are talking about, not just some IT guys, sysadmins or admins. They came out and said their total expense of unplanned outage could be somewhere in the range of about $300,000 per hour. And for about 1/3 of them, the cost of outage could be anywhere between 1 to 5 million per hour. Again, it's not just the business being down, but the war room and the personnel that being pulled out from DevOps teams and develop teams, corral them all together, the total time they're spending in the whole 9 yards. So, and then the other interesting question when they asked, what is your average time for an unplanned service outage? The answer is about 4 hours. Roughly, it takes about 4 hours on an average to solve any critical outage. And on an average, companies seem to have a minimum of 2 to 3 outages per year. So if you had to do your math, if you could, I hope I got my math right. Cost of the unplanned downtime can be anywhere between $2.5 million to $40 million a year. And that's going up yearly increase of 30% year to year. These are not the numbers I'm making up. This is from that survey. If you go to that, you could see in much more detail. So why is this important, right? So then let's talk about how we can fix it. So what is AIOps? AIOps is actually a term that is coined by Gartner in 2017, about 2-3 years ago. It's a mouthful to read, but you could read it. If you Google it, you'll be able to see it. But essentially, what it is, how do you use artificial intelligence for IT operations? Actually, originally it was named as algorithmic IT operations. circa 2016-ish. But then they figured out it's kind of confusing, so they changed it to artificial intelligence for IT operations and shortly AIOps. And there are a couple of other analyst firms that had different terms for it. And then finally, the whole market around 2018-ish decided, let's avoid the confusion. Let's all call that as AIOps. And that's how the name came about. And you can see what it is, or the definition of Gartner. But essentially what that is you use artificial intelligence to improve your IT operations. If you think about it, using AI in IT is long due, even though IT is the one which is supporting the business units to do AI or operationalize AI, operationalize machine learning and the whole 9 yards when they're working on it. They were kind of, the IT operations themselves were going through a sort of like a cobbler's children mentality of applying AI to IT operations. You know, as you know, cobbler's children will be the last one to get a new shoe. The same way IT operations were almost the last man standing to get this. Even though they support all of the big data warehouses, data lakes, advanced analytics, real-time insights, etc. But the reason, in my mind at least, that's my personal opinion, Andy's opinion, is because the other AI initiatives, whether it's an innovation initiative or efficiency initiative, most of this were actually being paid by BUs. A BU executive will come and say, you know what, keep hearing about this AI, do it for me, I'll pay you. And then IT gets on it. But if they were to do it for themselves, IT is already considered a cost center by many companies. It's kind of hard for them to take a new initiative, but that mentality is changing. I'll tell you why. So what had happened is, since then, the AI ops has become quite popular. And there are some use cases that I want to talk about real quick. By the way, I have only about 15 minutes, so I won't be able to cover the full breadth of AI ops. So I'll talk about some of the basic use cases. And if you have any additional questions, you're welcome to reach out to me or to the organizers, and they'll be able to find me. The first very important use case is what I call it as an event consolidation. So what happens is, in the IT environment, especially somebody who's moving to cloud and have an existing data center as well, or the hybrid cloud mode, for any event that happens, whether it's a network event or application event, it produces a large stream of system events, from all the way from network to application to whatnot, ton of events. So when you get the raw data, it's not uncommon to see there are some events, for example, a router going down at one of the data centers can produce upwards of 100,000 events. So how do you take them all? And obviously, your IT team is so limited, they'll be broke in no time if they were to analyze all the 100,000 events or the alerts that come in. So the IT operations teams, if you go to any NOC team, you will see what I'm talking about. There's a constant alert, bells and whistles all the time. Something is making noise, almost like a steam engine room. So a lot of these ops guys are getting confused by or getting fatigued by what I call it as alert fatigue. Too many alerts they're getting. So how do you take all those alerts and consolidate them all into groups? So if there is, for example, if Wi-Fi goes down at a specific site, that could land up creating almost 100,000 events, from a combination of network events to APM events to ITM, infrastructure monitoring, and all the way up to the digital experience user monitoring that's there now. How do you take all of that and consolidate them all, and then create maybe 1 or 2 or 3 top level events? So when the war room happens, people will look at those specific events instead of chasing all those 100,000 events, right? So this is a very common use case that AI ops try to solve. Avoid ops people from getting alert fatigued, consolidate the events, reduce noise, make some high-level consolidation, prioritization of the events, and have them look at very few events so it's easier for them to chase down what the problem is. So the second use case that I see very commonly is what I call as anomaly detection. So when things happen, when the operations go smoothly, everything is coded now, the low code, no code, the infrastructure is code, the whole 9 yards. So the scaling up and down, the whole 9 yards, everything is supposed to, an application is supposed to scale up and down if you're in a pure cloud native environment without a need for any ops person to get involved, right? So if you assume everything goes right, and if you set some static thresholds, alert me at about this 60% or 70% all the time. And if it gives an alert at that particular set threshold, a static threshold, that doesn't mean that the application is not working well. For example, Monday morning when everybody comes to work, everybody checks email. So which means the email servers are overloaded, maybe up to 80%. But so the specific alert shouldn't happen based on just a real-time event. It should also be able to take the historic analysis into consideration. And then the AI should be able to figure out, is this a true anomaly, or is this something that's happening because of the historical event, a combination thereof, right? So that's another use case that a lot of companies use AIOps for, to solve, to figure out, is it a true anomaly or is it an outlier, right? And the third one, which is an interesting use case, Gartner recently put out a note suggesting about 85% of all performance incidents can be traced to changes, which is kind of bothersome if you were to look at it closely, because of late, particularly with all the work from home and other remote working concepts, the DevOps teams and the CI/CD tools and the DevOps tool combinations, whether it's GitLabs or Jenkins or Jira's of the world, a combination of all of this has brought agile product development and quick, immediate delivery to the forefront. In the past, when we used to live in the enterprise world, the scheduled releases would be like months apart, sometimes even years apart if it's a big application. But it's very common that I see with the enterprises that they do almost like, a few releases, not major ones, but a few updates or changes or releases to their app on a daily basis. And when you do changes like this, there's even one of this IT ops executive, VP of operations for a large company that I was talking to. He told me privately, not to be recorded with his name again, but he said, DevOps guys are making, to an extent, our life miserable. If you think that through, to an extent, it's true, because the DevOps guys are pushing changes so fast and so quick, and the ops teams at times are not aware of what's happening on the change side of things. And when you can't correlate those two things, things can get ugly. And if this is where AIOps can help, because it pulls in all the information from the CI/CD tools or DevOps tools or a combination thereof. So they are aware of what's going on in the background. So if there is something that comes up that it's not supposed to behave in a way that it's supposed to, if an app is taking about, page is taking about 3 minutes, 3 or 5 seconds to load, and the order is not flowing properly, the root cause analysis of what had happened and correlating back to, there was a change that happened to this app that got pushed out today, maybe that is the reason. So by getting to the root cause fairly quickly, you can reduce what's called the MTTR, or mean time to resolution, because as I say, if you don't find out what the problem is, you can't fix whatever the problem is. So getting to the root cause of what caused this problem, whatever the problem that's happening, quickly enough can reduce your MTTR, hence the cost savings, right? So that's another major use case that the companies are using AIOps solution for. And then there are some advanced use cases. I don't think we'll have time to cover any of those, but things like, reducing the service ticketing. For example, I was talking about this noise earlier on alerts. If you let the systems create service tickets for each of the outliers or anomalies or service issues that gets created, there could be hundreds of tickets that will get created per single logical incident. So by having a system, an AIOps system that sits in between, figuring out either correlating all of those tickets and or just create one ticket for all these events together and enrich the ticket with all that information, saying that this is the change that went in last time or a combination thereof. The help desk can figure out what the problem is fairly quickly. And the other related thing that I'm seeing with the companies is it can also help schedule the help desk personnel. One of the advanced use cases of AIOps is figuring out how many service tickets you expect to come in the next 5 hours, next day, next week. It could do some sort of a prediction, almost like a demand prediction in sales use cases. And then based on that, they can schedule that so that enough help desk or support personnel is available during whatever the time you need. So you don't have to do a guesswork saying that, I need 100 people, but I had 1,000, or I need 100 people, I had only 10. And there are other advanced use cases of capacity planning or traffic isolation and suspicious traffic detection and isolation, or enhanced ticket enhancement, or one of the last ones that I really love is what I call it as a proactive support. That support, or AIOps, with the AIOps help, support is able to identify a problem before it happens. That's one of my favorite use cases, actually. I call that as a Jedi trait. If any of you guys out there are Star Wars fans like I am, one of the best part of being a Jedi is they can apparently see something that happens before it happens. So with AIOps help, your support folks can become the Jedis of the IT world. They could figure out before the problem happens and either go fix it or take proactive measures so the problem doesn't happen. Imagine the power of that, right? So those are advanced use cases. We won't have time to cover that, but if you reach out to me, I'm more than happy to talk to you. So then I have some practical advice too. This is my favorite quote from the Yankee great Yogi Berra. As he said, in theory, there's no difference between theory and practice, but in practice there is, which is really true with the AIOps. When you're trying to implement that, how do you do it right? I mean, you read all this, you heard a bunch of webinars, you spoke to a bunch of folks. How do you get started doing this? My advice to customers, by the way, I do consulting and advising customers on how to implement AIOps solutions properly, right? The first thing is I tell them start small, right? Figure out some of the use cases that's very critical and important for you. Just because AIOps can solve 20, 30 different major problems doesn't mean that you need to solve all 20, 30 of that. Your problem may be that you got to do it for noise reduction or for anomaly detection or for capacity planning. Figure out which is very important and prioritize the use cases first. And the second one is, as with any other AI solution or ML solution, AI is more about data than the algorithm itself. So if you don't have a good quality, right amount of data, then your models may not work properly. So streamline the right data collection, collecting it properly, storing it properly, have both historic data available for model creation and the real-time data, updating the models on a regular basis so the model won't become stale. It's very important in your planning process. And the other important part about AIOps is about you should be able to automate the processes. You have the data, you got some insights out of that, and your algorithm is at its peak, that it's giving out all the insights. But after you're getting that, if you don't do anything with that, why are you even doing it to begin with? You should have the processes automated, or at least semi-automated, more than a runbook level. You just don't go give somebody a run book and say that, you know what, do all this process manually. And that's what the AIOps solution told me. It's not going to help me much. At least you have to either, if not fully automate, you should consider semi or heavy automation process of some of the processes. So when things happens with one click, a lot of them can happen. And keep in mind, it's a journey. It's not like, a lot of people want to implement this and boil the ocean. I tell them, don't do it, because you can never, this is true with any project for that matter, don't bite more than what you can chew. Start with a couple of use cases, like I said, heavily prioritize it and use it. And then after that, keep building on top of it. And one of the things what IT guys tend to miss is you got to get the BU buy-in. If you go to any of the business leaders and tell them, you know what, I'm going to keep your app run 100% all the time, or at least 5 nines up. You could have, the digital experience tools you could use to monitor your user experience will be 24/7 up, 24/7 by 365 up, helping your customers. And the BU is going to fund you. They'll find money. You don't have to worry about the dollars. They will be willing to partner with you because you're trying to make them successful. So this is very, very critical when you start this. You got to get the BU in. You got to go to war with them, not just by yourself. And the very important one is, I can't stress this enough. There's a lot of snake oil sales out there. Everybody is an AIOps vendor now, the same way that everybody used to be a cloud vendor a few years ago. Look deep into the platform to see if it satisfies your specific needs more than the market what they got. And does it really help solve your problem that what you're looking for to solve? And more than just verbal things, what they tell you, I even suggest people to do a POC or even an MVP pilot to see if it is really solving the problem that you thought it would solve the way you want it to solve. I know it's a lot to cover in 15 minutes, so I think I've done a fair share. If you want to reach out to me, these are my social handles. By the way, this is hot off the press. The DBTA is actually starting an AIOps consulting practice, and I'm collaborating with them in doing that. So if you want to find out more details, you can either reach out to me directly or reach out to anybody at DBTA, particularly Stephen Feig or myself. We actually do helping these customers out on properly selecting and implementing AIOps solutions. With that, I don't want to stand any more between you and your drinks. So thanks for coming to the session. I appreciate it, and I hope you got some value out of this.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you very much. I don't know about the drinks. Since we have people here from many different time zones, it's not clear to me that it's time for drinks in every single time zone.
Hey, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, as they say, right?
As they say, and I do like the idea of us all becoming Jedi Knights so that we can see things before they happen. I'm going to work on that one. If you have any concrete suggestions about how I achieve this, do let me know.
Buy a laser sword first.
Oh, right. I should have known, of course. We do have a question for Rashmi. We have an attendee who wants to know if you could cite a specific company where machine learning is deployed with success and the results achieved. Do you have some suggestions for our attendee? I think you're muted, Rashmi.
Rashmi, I think your actual mic is off.
You have to turn on your mic.
Hello.
Oh,
there we go.
Thank you.
Yay. So can you repeat the question, Marity?
Sure. This is someone who wants to know if you could show a specific company where machine learning is deployed with success and what results were achieved.
So we do it very successfully at KPMG, right? So we have internally, we have a machine learning center of excellence, we call it, and they have a lot of models which are available for successful collaboration with various business challenges to be solved, right? And I can give more details later on, but any other specific questions on that regard, like any specific business use case which I can narrate?
Okay. I've got a question here for Andy. Is the botnet detection use case on the rise now because of social media? Has that had an effect?
I wouldn't say social media has an effect in it, but all the newer technologies of, it's easy to build any application nowadays, right? I mean, remember in the old days, in order to build an enterprise grade application, you need to buy maybe mainframe or tons of machines and build the whole thing with all kind of software. It's going to cost you millions of dollars, plus the skills that are needed and the developers you need to hire. Now, the development has become so easy, and then you could use pay-as-you-go model, and most of them you don't even have to pay. You can try 30 days. So essentially what's happening is a lot of this, the rogue developers are able to develop solutions, or some of them are obviously, supported by either by organizations or even, by countries. And they develop rogue applications, and they're always on the lookout to send feelers out to find if they can poach some information. So the botnet traffic has increased. And one of the major problems all the enterprises are facing is, how do you distinguish between a good bot and a bad bot? For example, your chat bot is a good bot, all right?
Yeah, done correctly.
Yeah, of course. And there's actually even this one enterprise that we were having a conversation. One of the things they are concerned about is that when a chatbot answers your question, do you have to legitimately tell your customer this answer is automated, right?
Yeah.
Is it a human which is giving understanding your question and giving you an answer, or I'm giving you auto response, but I'm making it sound? For example, some of these companies I deal with, whether on the phone or typing it in, you could hardly tell that that's a chat. The chats have come so far up. So it could give you an answer, and I'm happy with the answer, but it always leaves me wonder, being in the field, AI field.
Yeah.
Did I get duped by a machine? Yeah, did I get duped by a machine, or did someone really answer my question, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so quick. So going back to the original, it's not because of social media, but it's because of all the advancement in technologies. Yes, that's and the knowledge of the developer base. The young kids, actually, my kids can code really well. Not that they're coding bad, but the young people can code, and then when they get bored, they have to do something with that. So I'm not suggesting all are bad, but the skills of people who are developing applications and the availability of tools, availability of cheaper computational resources has made it bad.
Okay. See, we had a question for Rashmi, but I think she went on mute. Rashmi, are you still here?
I'm in there.
Yeah, there you are. Okay. Question was about data sets and how you didn't talk much about data sets for machine learning, and I wondered where that fits into that chart you had on capability to potential tool choices. Where does that fit in?
So the data source, as I said, is really integral part of any model management, right? So that's why we talked about the data ops there. So when we talk about the data sets, we require the data sets for right data sets for feature engineering. And these features are very critical inputs to any model.
Okay.
So as you can see that these are the data is input to the models. And as these models are fed the right data, they can really crunch out the right results. So there goes a lot inside the data ops themselves, right? So the identification of the right data sets, identification of the right features that we call it feature extractions. And then there is around the whole data quality management, how to profile the data, how to make sure that the data is right. That all feeds into that all is called data ops, which really gets integrated tightly with the model. And each model will have different sets of the data through against which it is tested out.
Okay, depending on what you're trying to achieve.
Right, right.
Yeah, okay. If I'm not seeing any more questions here, so let me thank both Rashmi and Andy for very interesting presentations, and also thank our diamond sponsors, Sumo Logic and DataStax. And attendees, we're going to go out with a bang here. So we've got a couple of high energy videos for you as we thank all of you for coming to this week of Data Summit Connect webinars. And I think some of you have been here for 3 days, and I'm in awe of your ability to stay with us for the whole time. So thank you to all of our attendees, our speakers, our sponsors. Thanks again.